I keep trying to think of a word to describe this era in which we're living. And I keep coming up with bonkers, right? Like this is just so wild. The fact that we're in this position. I mean, it's so wild that in fact the third criminal indictment um is just sort of one more, right? Like I saw the news hit yesterday. There's another indictment. Okay, there's another. Here's another one. So the arraignment itself is just a pretty perfunctory experience. So, and frankly, the president, the former president, has done this a few times already now. So he knows how this is going to go. But he's gonna, he's gonna be processed. He's gonna be advised of the charges against him. He's gonna enter a plea of not guilty. The judge may set out a very initial schedule, but this is the magistrate judge, not the district court judge, that's going to be handling the matter. So their job in this type of case in a criminal proceeding at this point is just to sort of be the initial gatekeeper for the matter and advise the defendant of the charges against them. The former president is very litigious. I mean, it's hard to see him resolving this in some way prior to trial, unless he is sort of willing to resolve, the other case, the documents case, and then, in turn, as a result of that, sort of these charges aren't continued. I mean, but it's hard to imagine a resolution that the former president would agree to. Most federal cases resolve before trial. The vast majority of them, it's a very small percentage that go to trial. But given sort of what's at stake here, who the defendant is here, these cases certainly seem to be heading towards trial. I mean, I think that even the timelines that are currently set out for the other cases that are charged are very ambitious. I don't think those timelines are going to hold. So the documents case, for instance, has this May trial date. It's hard to imagine that date holds, given sort of everything that has to happen between now and then. And frankly, the former president has a right to participate in his own defense, to prepare, to work with his lawyers, and to do that in a really fulsome way. And so I don't know how he does that with these three cases going on. And so it's not unusual for a federal case to really take, a number of years to resolve. And I don't think, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens here as well. This is an interesting case, as a sort of putting sort of both my former prosecutor hat on and my defense attorney hat on, because this case, in order to prove this case, the Justice Department has to sort of parade these witnesses through the courtroom, sort of very high level government officials through the courtroom, and have them testify about these conversations that they had. I mean, in some instances, I think those conversations were recorded, or there's contemporaneous notes of those conversations, and there's going to be corroboration of those conversations, as I understand it. But sort of this is a trial, if this case were to go to trial, that is essentially high level officials from the vice president on down testifying in federal court. I mean, so what that trial looks like is really mind boggling. Yeah, I mean, so this is a little bit of a harder story to tell to the jury, right? So because at the beginning you have to educate the jury about elections and election law and things like that. There's a lot of education of the jury that you need to do in the course of a trial like this. And then the trial itself, I think, is going to consist very largely of witness testimony, right? There's sometimes trials that are more heavily dependent on documents or recordings or emails or sort of tangible evidence, or other trials that are sort of more weighted towards witness testimony. And this is a case that is really weighted towards witness testimony. And so I am sort of envisioning in my head this very long, drawn out process where all of these high level folks are testifying and then cross-examined, in excruciating detail. And one of the hardest things, frankly, for witnesses to recall is conversations they've had, right? And so people's recollection of conversations, particularly significantly after the fact of that conversation, can vary over time. And so I think, this is, I would anticipate some really active cross-examination of the witnesses who were testifying about conversations they had either with the former president or his co-conspirators or his agents.